Good morning, students. Let's start with a new chapter today, 12th Night. It is from your short stories book. I'm sure you all have this book with you. Open to page number 52. The chapter that we are about to do today is 12th Night. So let's go through it. It's a nice story, short story. Let's read it. There once lived in the land of Greece a brother and a sister, Sebastian and Voila by name. Now we're talking about a place, Greece, and there lived this brother and sister, and their name was Sebastian and Voila. These two, born at the same time, so they were twins, were so much alike that if they were dressed in similar clothes, even their friends could hardly distinguish one from the other. So, when they were dressed like same, then it was difficult even for their friends to distinguish who was who. That means they were twins. Their father had died when they were 13 years old. Being thus left alone in the world, they grew so dear to one another that each felt unhappy in the absence of the other. So they were together, they were all alone. Their father was dead, and because of that, they have this kind of, they had this attachment that they would never live without each other. See the next part here. At the time when this story begins, Sebastian and Voila had grown up and were taking a voyage together to the coast of Illyria. As they drew near to the end of their journey, the ship in which they sailed was caught in a storm and wrecked. So their ship, it actually caught in a storm and it got wrecked. As it sank beneath the waves, many of the crew were drowned, but the captain, together with Voila and few sailors, managed to get away in the small boat before the ship went down. Now they were sailing, they were on their journey, and before they could end the journey, they had this strong storm, and because of that, the ship broke, right? And before anything more could happen, the captain of the ship had the boat, another boat, and Voila with few of the other sailors, they were able to sail away. Okay, then it says here, for many hours they were driven along by the wind and waves, till at last, by a lucky chance, the boat was thrown up on the shore. So they were drifted away, it was all because of the storm, because of the wind, that their boat kept drifting away. And suddenly it was the luck that their boat was thrown at the side of the shore, on the shore. When she had got out of the boat, Voila asked the captain if he knew the name of that land. This is Illyria, lady, answered the captain. So they had finally reached the place. What have I to do with Illyria? She replied sorrowfully, or indeed in any place, since my dear brother is dead. Now she's thought that her brother died, and that's why she feels that what she has to do now, when her dear brother is no more. And yet, since chance has saved my life, perhaps he too has been spared. And yet, of course, finally she feels that maybe he must have been spared, because I am also alive, so I feel that my brother must be alive. True, lady, replied the captain, and to comfort you, let me tell you this. As the ship broke into two, I saw your brother tie himself to a strong mast which floated with him on the waves. And he, like us, he may have been washed on the shore and still be alive. So he says here, yes, of course, I even saw your brother. He was holding one of the pieces of the log, and I've seen him sailing away. That means he was alive and he is safe. Now he must have reached some or the other shore. Voila was much comforted at this thought and looked about her, wondering what was the best thing to do. The captain told her that he knew the country well. I'm sorry. having been born and brought up in a place nearby, and that the land was ruled over by a prince named Orsino. So the captain, he told Voila, right, that he knew the place very well. He even knew the things around, and he told her that this country is actually ruled by Prince Orsino. He was a man of noble character and not married, for the lady whom he loved by name Olivia refused to have him. Now this Prince Orsino was in love with Lady Olivia. You can see the names here, right? And this lady, she had refused to marry Prince Orsino. Who is then Olivia? Asked Voila. In reply, the captain told her that she was the daughter of a neighboring nobleman who had died a year before. After his death, Olivia was left in the care of a brother, but he too died, and Olivia was so overcome with grief that she never left the house and allowed no one to visit her. So she said, okay, the captain tells Voila that Olivia is the daughter of a nobleman, neighboring nobleman, and her father died, just a year ago, and because of the grief, she was left into the care of her brother, and even her brother died there. That is why she was filled with grief and sadness, and that she also, and because of the reason, she avoided or ignored marrying Prince Orsino. She denied. Hearing this story, Voila felt much pity for the poor lady, right? So the moment Voila heard the story of Lady Olivia, she could actually, feel, or she could actually resonate herself with that lady. So she felt really bad for her. She wished she might be received into her house to wait upon her. She said she wishes to work for Lady Olivia. But the captain said that that would not be possible. The captain refused. He said that's not possible. Lady Olivia will not let you work for her. Give me a minute. Now come to page number 54. Since her brother's death, Olivia had allowed no one to enter the house, not even Prince Orsino, who loved her. Now this lady Olivia, after her brother's death, she has not allowed anyone to enter in, not even the prince who loved her. Then said Voila, if I cannot serve the lady, I will serve the prince himself. Now, Voila was looking for a job, and she said, okay, that if I cannot serve the lady, then I wish to serve the prince. You, friend, must help me in this plan, and I will pay you well. So she tells the captain that if you help me in this plan, then of course I will pay you very well. Get me some clothes and I will dress myself up as a young man. Now we all know that this girl, she was too much like her brother, so it was easy for her to dress up like a boy. And that's what she says here. Get me the dress of a boy and I will dress like a young man. Then take me to the prince and tell him I wish to be his servant boy. Then you can take me to the prince and tell him that I wish to be his servant boy. I will sing to him and serve him faithfully, but do not tell anybody who I really am. The worthy captain agreed to Voila's plan and swore that he would keep the whole matter a secret. Voila gave him money with which he obtained for her clothes like those of her brother, so that when she was dressed in them she looked exactly like Sebastian himself. Then the captain took Voila to the prince, who took a liking to the boy and readily agreed to employ him. Voila called herself Cesario, and no one but the captain knew she was a girl in men's clothes. So this girl, she had a plan. She dressed up like a boy and she thought of working for Prince Orsino. Now, when she went there, she was all dressed like a boy. She was looking like a boy, like her own brother. And because of that, Prince agreed. Prince felt a kind of a likeness for the little boy, and he agreed to keep him as his servant. Voila performed her duty so well that before many days had passed, she was already high in Orsino's favor. He soon told her all the story of his love for Olivia and how the lady refused to see him or receive the messengers he sent to tell her of his love. Now, very soon this girl, Voila, when she changed her dress, okay, she changed her name as well. She kept her name as Cesario. Now, when she was working for Prince Orsino, the prince actually, he started liking this servant boy. He gave him a higher position, and apart from that, he even discussed about his love for Olivia with Voila. Now, he even told her that this lady, she sends all the men away without listening anything about his love. Okay, let's continue. And Voila, as she listened to his story, began to fall in love with him. But she hid her love, or not showed so much as a servant boy might rightfully feel for his master. Now, Voila, while she was listening about Lady Olivia from the Prince Orsino, she fell in love with the prince, right? And before long, the prince sent Voila with a love letter to Olivia. Now, this prince, he was smart enough, he sent Voila with a letter to Lady Olivia. Now, according to the prince, Voila was a servant boy, right? Dressed as a servant boy, Cesario, and he gave his love letter to him and said, I want you to deliver this letter to Lady Olivia, right? Give me a minute. Okay, let's continue. Then it says here, Prince Orsino, he told Voila to deliver the message. He says here, go to the lady, tell her that I love her. And although she is unkind, I think of none but her. For you are hardly yet a man, and she will listen to your words, when she would send an older man away unheard. So the prince, he thought that maybe this lady Olivia, she will hear to the words of this young Cesario, and that's why he sent her, or he sent Cesario to Lady Olivia. So thought Voila herself loved the prince. She started off for Olivia's house to try to persuade the lady to marry him, but her heart was heavy as she went. When she arrived at the gates, the servant who had orders from his mistress to admit no one, refused to let her in. Now, when Voila she reached the gates of Lady Olivia, the servant who was already there, he refused to let her in. The lady is ill, he said, and no one may see her. I know that she is ill, replied Voila, and it is for that reason I've come. I will not go till you have let me in. But, said the man, she is asleep. No one can see her now. That, too, I know, said Voila, but still I will not go till I have talked with her. Then the servant went and told his mistress of Voila's request, and how the young man was determined not to go until he had talked with her. Olivia asked what he was like, for he must be kept in mind that Voila was dressed as a servant boy. Now Olivia, she wanted to know what this servant looked like, and this Voila, she was dressed like a boy. So Olivia, she thought that he is a servant boy. On hearing that he was a good-looking youth, Olivia became curious to see him and told her man to show the visitor in. But she had no doubt that the messenger had come from Orsino, and she covered her face with a veil, saying as she did so that once more she would hear what the prince had to say to her. Now, this lady Olivia, she was strong, like she knew already that the messenger is from Prince Orsino, So what she did, she said, okay, I'll listen to the message. She read, she covered her face and she was sitting when who entered? Voila. When Voila came in, she saw not one, but several ladies seated there, with a covered figure among them, so that she did not know which was the lady of the house. Now, when Voila entered in, she saw that many ladies were sitting all around. They all, they all had covered their faces, so it was difficult to find out who is the right lady. Okay. She said that she had written and learned so carefully the words she was to say that it would be pity to address them to the wrong person. After some talk, she learned that the covered figure was Olivia, but still she refused to deliver her message till all the others had been asked to leave the room. Now, Voila was a smart girl. She knew how to find the right women, and that's what she did. She finally got to Olivia and she refused to read the message in front of the other ladies, and she said, I can only read it to you if you are alone. Okay, let's see. My words, lady, she said, are for your ears alone. And further, I beg you to let me see your face. Now Voila's youth and good looks and ready speech quickly worked upon Olivia, so that she became far more interested in the messenger himself than in any message that he might bring her from the prince. Now Olivia was not aware of the fact that Voila is a girl, so she saw him and she saw how beautiful or how smart this young man was, and she was more interested in the boy than the message from the prince, right? So she was quite willing to let him see her face. And when the other ladies had left the room, she drew the veil from her face. As she did so, she said, I will draw the curtains and show you the picture is not well painted. Excellency, replied the servant boy, and highly praised her beauty. Then he went on to speak of Prince Orsino's love, how he worshipped Olivia and spent his days in sorrow and pain for love of her. If I loved you as my master does, said Voila, I would take no refusal, but would build a cottage at your gates. There I would live and call your name aloud, write songs, sing to you, till at last you pitied me and listened to my love. You might do much, said Olivia, but I shall never love your master. Go back and tell him so. Let him send no more, unless indeed you come again yourself to tell me how he takes my message. Now, Olivia, she fell in love with Voila without knowing that she's a girl. She thought he is Cesario. She fell in love with him. And she told Voila that you can go and tell your master that I do not love him. I don't want any messages from Prince Orsino unless you are the one who brings the message. So she was somewhat interested in Voila rather than the prince. And there's a reason she thought Voila is a boy. The fact that Olivia was fast falling in love with Voila, she never doubted that Voila was a man and could not bear to think that she might never see him again. Then she offered money, but Voila refused to take it, and begging Olivia more, only once to try to think a little more kindly of her master, went away. Right? So here we can see that Voila, what she did, she told the lady Olivia to think of her master in a kind way and to try and accept the love that Prince Orsino has for Lady Olivia. But Lady Olivia was more interested in Voila. She thought, and there's a reason, Voila was dressed as a boy and she had changed her name to Cesario, and that's why Lady Olivia was in love with Voila. Like, she was more interested in the servant boy than the master himself. Right? So we'll continue from here in the next video. Just do one thing. If you can, keep reading it, read it, and see if you have any doubts, please do let me know. Okay, so that is it for today. Thank you.